Good evening. My name is Janejila Gammans. I'm a first-year student studying BA Archaeology here at the Institute of Archaeology, UCL. I'm originally from a small seaside town called Worthing, and today I stand here in front of you as an exceedingly grateful Malcolm Grant Scholar. I'd like to give you my story on how the award of the Malcolm Grant Scholarship affected my life, and how contributions from people like you standing in front of me today can astronomically turn somebody's life around. I'm going to start 5 months ago with potentially the most terrifying and midlife crisis equivalent week of my life, for lack of a better word, the lead up to A-level results week. Though I was one of the many lucky undergraduates standing here in this room to have logged on to UCAS and received an offer from UCL, the prospect of moving to one of the greatest and most diverse cities in the world filled me with incredible apprehension and anxiety. And these questions about how I would afford day-to-day life, affording to be independent, purchasing academic material so that I could have the privilege of accessing it from my own room, being able to pay for fieldwork and field trips like any archaeologist should be able to do, all of these thoughts securely revolving in my head. The New Policy Institute published in 2015 that of 9 million young people aged 14 to 24 in the UK, that approximately 30% of these students are living in poverty. That 30% equates to 2.7 million young students living under the poverty line in the United Kingdom today. Poverty is a cruel and harsh tutor. And as a person who had had first-hand experience, I've known it to discourage those from the poorest of households to apply for university. Although in the last 2 years, the number of students under the poverty line who have applied and attend university has risen by 10%, there is still a fear of attending further education due to financial restrictions and repercussions. And similar to me, these are the students held back by going to university, especially students who wish to apply for university in London, a city ranked by the International Business Times as the 5th most expensive city in the world. So where does my story fit into this, you may ask? Let me rewind my story to 2001. I was 4 years old, and my father had just passed away from cancer. My mother, at this point, had been living in the United Kingdom for 5 years, with my father having moved from Thailand. She moved to Britain with hope in her heart that bringing me up in the country could offer me an abundance of enriching life opportunities and broaden my potentials beyond anything she had the prospect of doing, having lived in a rural and poor province of Thailand. Shortly following the passing of my father, my mother was then dependent on me to teach her basic English, how to read and how to write. Living as a single-parent family brought about great financial difficulty when growing up, and a constant anxiety surrounding money struck from a young age. At age 8 in 2005, my sister, having shortly graduated from university, was diagnosed with schizophrenia and institutionalized. This was a highly disruptive time in my early childhood, colored by great difficulty in having to translate for my mother at regular hospital visits regarding my sister's health at just age 8. However, my family are in a great position now to say that my sister has actually recovered from this and is now a full-time lecturer back at home. But it is during this disruptive period that my mother had luckily met my stepfather, the next closest father figure I had in my life. But at age 12, things had taken another turn for the worse, and he had suffered from a heart attack and fell critically ill. He is now paralyzed from a stroke all along the left-hand side of his body and suffers from a severe speech impediment. Although he evidently remains an important figure in my life, again, this impacted my family massively. Around the same time, my brother, who lives back in Thailand, was diagnosed with AIDS, cancer, and a cardiomyopathy. This news turned my family upside down and was a time where, whilst growing up at age 16 and 17, we all had to find ways of financially supporting my brother from England for his ongoing medical treatment. The collective financial aid that my mother, sister, and myself provide for my brother is an ongoing hardship that has impeded greatly with our lives. These stories of my childhood are the visceral realities of what any given individual can go through in the world. And it was just by chance in this case, it was me. I'm not standing here today to provide you with a heartfelt sob story, or to tell you about my hardship and how deserving I am of my scholarship and all the money that everyone in this room has ever so kindly and generously donated. I'm here because it is your money that has changed lives. Though growing up, my early childhood has been coloured by what one can only describe as great misfortune, UCL in particular has offered me a clean break from my past that others may not have the privilege of confessing to. To me, the importance of studying archaeology is what gravitates around my resolute and upbeat attitude. It is the pinnacle of what motivates me to achieve higher and go beyond the standards expected. To some of you, the thought of studying remains deposited in the ground sounds incredibly mundane and boring, to which I agree with you. But it is archaeology and the understanding of what makes us human that motivates me to be standing in front of you all here today. The Institute of Archaeology has provided me a department enriched by the world's most well-known of archaeological scholars. I'm constantly surrounded by key archaeological figures who are benefiting towards new archaeological discoveries, and being here at UCL, and specifically the Institute, is what makes me so incredibly proud. And every student and young adult should have that opportunity to be proud and to achieve. It is now thanks to my first term at UCL and the Institute that I am now a member of staff at Stonehenge, as well as participating in leading archaeological research for the likes of scholars such as Dr. Stephen Shannon, Dr. Andy Bevan, and Dr. Alessio Pomzano. And it is to the donors of the Malcolm Grant Scholarship that I have each and every one of you to thank for. The day I received the Malcolm Grant Scholarship, on the 25th of September 2015, was the day that all fears and apprehensions were eradicated away. I know it sounds quite hyperbolic in that aspect, but to feel liberated, to feel that all those anxieties that spun in my head and once lingered whilst moving to London is something I can't even begin to explain to you. The new liberation brought to me was not only in the sense that I would never have to fear spending money as a student on the most basic academic material, but because of something much greater, my family, to which I'd like to take this minute I have to say to all the donors towards the Malcolm Grant Scholarship who are standing in this room today, and on behalf of all the students standing here, that I owe you my absolute eternal gratitude for what you have done and what you've given, and hopefully what you continue to decide to give. Nothing is more exhilarating than being able to say that I will no longer have to worry financially during my time at university, and that my mother is alleviated of her anxiety, that after years of constant hardship, she will never have to worry about me financially at uni, and she can live her own life. It is with great honour that I had the pleasure myself of thanking you on behalf of many other scholars in this room and bursary recipients. The money you have given can turn lives around. They can allow students to be students in their own right without having to worry about the basic things that they may need and require. They can become the academics, achieve the careers they have long had ambitions over, discover new things because their focus is no longer prioritized around their anxieties, but in fact on what their heart had set out the moment they chose to write their personal statements. Students should be students. They should be resolute in their studies without financial difficulty impeding on what they aim for. And sadly, that is the grotesque truth of what poverty and financial restrictions can do. But it is with the many awardees here today that proves what your donations can do. Provide students who are motivated to be the academics of your future. Write the headlines of your generations to come. To provide the statistics and the turnarounds of 2.7 million young students living under the poverty line and to succumb financial difficulty. Because I know now that it is with the motivation of the scholarship that it is ensured that with hard work and several years to come, that I can work towards becoming the PhD student in archaeology at UCL, and many other students should have that privilege too. Thank you.